Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Amro Shawli, a seasoned professional and leader in the realm of governance, risk, and control. As a chief governance, risk, and control officer, Amro has been instrumental in overseeing critical functions like risk, legal, governance, and cybersecurity at Bupa Arabia. His leadership journey includes significant roles as Chief Audit Officer at Vision International Investment Company and Chief Auditor at Aramco America. Amro's expertise extends to chairing and participating in various audit and risk committees, contributing to organizations like Advanced Piping Solutions Company and East Pipes Integrated Company. With over a decade of experience, Amro excels in strategic partnerships, offering broad-level assurance in governance, risk, controls, and compliance. His certifications in internal audit and management accounting, coupled with his MBA, empower him to drive sustainable change and innovation. I've asked Amro to join us here today to share his story plus insights on leadership, risk management, and being an inspirational leader in today's fast-paced corporate world. So Amro, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. How you doing?
How you doing, Daryl? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And I'm excited for our talk. We've had a couple of good conversations before hitting record. Now, before we get into like your roles, responsibilities, and things that you've learned, how did you even get into this field per se? Is this like a family business? Like some families are all engineers and doctors. Like how did you, it's a niche thing to get into? Were your parents involved in this? Are you like blazing your own trail? What's the background?
Actually, absolutely. It's the absolute opposite of that, Daryl. How I get none of my family members ever work in control or risk or governance. I'm sure if you meet them all right now, and if you ask them what I do, you will see a puzzled look in their faces because they absolutely have no idea what I do. But that's okay. That comes and stems from being a middle child, and you get that middle child syndrome where you want to do something different, separate from everybody else. My older brother is a PhD. He teaches at the university. He's an architect. He's an engineer. My second brother is a legal. He's also a PhD in legal. So I'm surrounded with PhDs. So I decided to take it to a different route. I got into this field. I hate to admit it, but almost by luck and by chance, because one of my greatest ambition is when I want to finish my high school is to be able to study abroad. And at that time, specific scholarship were offered in specific areas. For example, there was no, for example, scholarship for medical or specific areas of engineering, but a lot of that time, governance, control, and risk been recognized in the country as one of the talents and the competency that the country lacks. So they've been offering a lot of scholarships. So I had to make that call and finish my high school, luckily with good grades, get qualified for the scholarship, then get offered the scholarship. Then I went to the States. I went to Southern Illinois University where I did my undergrad in accounting and marketing, actually. Then went back and worked at Saudi Aramco. And this is where it started because Saudi Aramco decided to recruit me in an internal audit position. And at college in the States, they don't teach internal audit. They teach you accounting, marketing, and a bit of audit when it comes to accounting, which is almost related to external audit. So I had absolutely no idea what an internal audit is. So I had to learn it all the way through Saudi Aramco and through experience of work. And then that role got me introduced into the definition of controls, the definitions of risk, the definition of governance, and how it works and corporate governance and all of that. At that time, Saudi Aramco was a pioneer when it comes to control and governance and risk. Most of the other companies within the country, they were still in a phase exploring these ideas because Saudi Arabia is mostly dominated by family-owned businesses. Right. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but family-owned businesses, they don't take control and governance and risk on the top of their agenda. They're always last. So there was no focus on that. But then the stock market was also maturing at this time, and the country had a lot of ambition to expand the stock market, bring a lot of investment in, force the company to be more controlled and mature in these areas. I found myself developing a niche expertise that is needed at that time.
Mhm.
So I closed my mind on everything else and start focusing exactly on this area.
Got it.
Governance, risk, control, because this is where I realized this is what the country needs. This is what we're hitting. This is the future skills that I need to master it now in order to be able to be demanded in the future and help people to make, excuse me for saying that, but make money out of it as
Oh,
well.
that's fine. That's
So
fine. I'm all for making the world a better place and profiting wildly while doing it. That's my whole modus operandi. That's my MO. I want to make
yeah,
an amount of money and I want to do it making the world a better place. I'm okay with that. For the people listening, and maybe even for myself, I don't want to seem facetious. Can you define risk control and governance for us? We said you had to learn the definition after all these years of schooling. So what is your definition?
my definitions, let me walk you through the genesis a little bit. Before, it used to be handled separately. So governance was a discipline on its own, risk was a discipline on its own, and control was a discipline on its own. In the modern day now, they're trying what we're trying to do right now is create something called integrated GRC. So it's an integrated governance, risk and control, where these comes all in one pool and talk with each other and work with each other and be compatible with each other to deliver its value proposition. So what is governance? Governance is simply it's the ability, it's the discipline and the function that enable the shareholders and through their board to enable them to have more transparency, directorship, and control of their investment. Now, I say investment because investment take too many shapes. Maybe it could be a corporate, it could be a SME, small business, or whatever. Whatever there is an interaction between shareholders and their investment and companies, governance can play a part to make sure that there is enough control, there is enough directorship, there is enough transparency to enable this company to perform its duties without any conflict of interest or to avoid any moral hazards or all of that. So the governance actually is what help the shareholders get that assurance that their investment is safe. It trickled down from the shareholders now into the board. Some of these board members are actually a shareholder themselves, but some of them are not. And this is one of the key role of the governance because it ensures that you bring somebody in that is not a shareholder to provide independent view, expertise view into whatever market and industry you serve on. All this came, by the way, and get all this powerful attraction after the 2008 debacle that I'm sure everybody familiar with what happened in the States and everything. And then the Frank Dodds came and the act and all of that. This is where governance became a necessity. Now, I started with governance because risk came with it as well. 2008, after what happened into the stock market, after what happened into the mortgage market and the problem that kind of extended worldwide, everybody noticed that these corporations needs a proper governance system program.
To prevent corruption and the misaligned incentives, we'll call it that.
Exactly. And so we connected with the risk to make sure that these board members or these company or these agents who represent the company doesn't take too much risk. So we needed also a governance into the risk. So this is where risk comes and plays a part. A lot of the parameter of the risk need to be defined. Tolerance. What's the risk tolerance? What's the risk appetite? Is this risk tolerance and appetite agreed by the stakeholders? Is it agreed by the shareholders? Is it enough? So we start bringing the regulator in and all of that. By defining the governance, you start now getting more access into the risk. You start more either get access into accepting this risk, rejecting risk, managing this risk. You start understanding the appetite and the tolerance that you want, because some of the investors, for example, they don't want to take that much risk. Some of them win. All of that before it was almost absent because it was left to the corporation and the company agents to act, but the shareholders were absent from these kind of decisions. So now they're bringing it together.
Enron posts $1 billion top line revenue and then 12 months later files for bankruptcy. Like,
Yeah, you have a lot of examples. You get the Enron, and we get even local examples here. And you get the Enron of the world, the Wells Fargo of the world, the Volkswagen of the world. You get a lot of these cases. This brings me now to the control. So now you define the governance. You understand the risk. All what you need to do now is come up with the proper control to ensure that all these risks are managed and the governance actually stand. So the governance in itself is a theory by itself, is a direction by itself, it's a discipline, but it's the control at the end of the day that bring them all together. So you need to design and develop that control to make sure that the risk and the governance stand. So these are the three pillars. Then comes internal audit, which is enable you to test and all of that, just to make sure that it's monitored properly. So this is my view into the whole GRC. This is why I like to speak about them together, because they speak together, they are connected together. The interconnectedness between them is extremely important.
so let me say this back. So they used to be separate, but lots of gaps and ruined lives and loss of investments and income cause people to go, we need to tie these things together, integrate them. And it sounds like it starts with the governance in terms of who's got a say in what goes on and how much of a say do they have. And so you create a theory of this, it sounds, and then you have to basically communicate with all the stakeholders and understand their tolerance for risk, their appetite for risk, which I think is different. Because one is, how long do you hold on when things get rocky? That's your tolerance. Your appetite is like, I feel like tolerance is when the external forces push on you. Appetite is what you want to jump into. And then And then the agreement among all the stakeholders on what is the census of these three things. And the controls, like you say, bringing it together. So now that we have these, how do we enforce these? How do we audit these? How do we make sure that things stay in line? And if this, then what? Kind of come up with those sort of scenarios to keep everything headed in the right direction and all the cats herded together. Is that a fair estimation of what's been?
It's a really good summary. Thank you, Gerald. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, okay, got it. So I love that. So now, what have been some of your biggest challenges in doing this? It sounds, first you have to learn how to do it, and then like you talk about, and actually I even want before that, can you speak to why did the country lack this so much? What's the benefit of it? What happens in the absence? Maybe we should talk about that. What happens in the absence of integrated GRC?
The absence of it actually, it kind of prevent if you are a country and you're looking for growth and you want to attract foreign investment, you have to send signals and assurance to this foreign investment that your investment will be protected. We have transparency, we have the rules, we have the guidelines, we have everything in place. We have the regulation, we have the regulators, and we have the local partners who understand all of this and make sure that your investment is not going to get lost in the country. The absence of it was coming, as I told you before, 60%, 70% of the business in Saudi Arabia was in the country is mostly privately owned and family-owned business. And again, with the family-owned business, you get the big guy at the top who's making all the calls, and he wants everybody to ensure that they are doing it. And there was no understanding of the benefit of our controls. But at that point, that system served until a certain point.
Sure.
But then with the country vision to expand with the stock market, and they want more IPOs, and they want to expand the investment. The family-owned business, actually, the wealth has transferred from one generation to a younger generation. So now it's different. Now you have 6, 7 partners sitting on the board disagreeing with each other. And so how are you going to handle this disagreement? And they are sitting on a big amount of capital that almost a national security, if they disagreed and start liquidating, is going to impact the economy of the country. So there wasn't necessary to bring the rules and the regulation to manage all this, especially if a lot of this want to cash out. So I say, okay, it was easy. I want to cash out. I want to make an IPO, but wait a second. It's not just as easy as that. If you want to go on an IPO, now the public has a foreign investment has to come into the play. You have to follow the best practices in governance and risk and control to make sure we protect. Because at the end of the day, the reputation of the country on stake. We don't want 2-3 failures here and there rip the country off of the benefit of a foreign investment later. So this is how it all comes into play right now.
That's what Trudeau in Canada with the truck drivers. Then they froze the bank accounts of the truck drivers, the peaceful protesters, and even people who donated to the cause. And so when the government starts freezing bank accounts, foreign investors get shot. And you have to remember that it's like having a party at your house and you're inviting guests in, you want them to be comfortable. If you start beating up people at your party, other people may go, hey, I'm going to go to another party. I don't need to stay here. This isn't my house. I don't live here. I'm going to go somewhere else. I think that's a really good analogy. And I think that hopefully people understand, if they didn't understand before, why this is such an important thing. And depending on the stage of the company, it might not be, I don't know, maybe you speak to this. When is it appropriate for a company? Is there a revenue threshold? Is there a stage? Is there once a certain number of people are involved? Or does the small business owner need to worry about this to a big extent?
Yeah, that's a good question, Daryl, because I think it has to go hand in hand. The maturity of your GRC system, and we'll start calling it GRC system now, because we already defined it, so we'll move forward with that. So the maturity of GRC system has to match the maturity of your corporation and company. Right. If you are a company of one, you are the only owner, really? This is your only money, you have no partners. So you will come up with just only control to the control you mostly will come up with, and the governance you will set up just to prevent leakage. That's all. So you prevent your employees or the people who's working with you not to relax on safety standards, for example, not to relax on leakage standards and all of that. Make sure they bring the invoices, make sure they bring the bills so you can pay accurately, make sure everything is archived so you can develop your financial plan and financial statements. So if that's a company one, but as the company grows and you get more complicated, you get more suppliers now, you get more vendors, you're trying to attract partners, you expanded to 3 offices in 2 different jurisdictions. The maturity has to move with that as well. So you need more controls, you need more governance, you need more agents who helps you make sure the system stands. And it get complicated if you get growing more. Okay, now I want to bring a partner. That partner is a sister or a brother, or that is just an independent. So you have to define all the conflict of interest. It get even more complicated if the board, for example, is you and your brother, but then there is somebody who's not related to you. So how you define conflict of interest now, how you get the voting properly documented, because at the end of the day, or how you define related party transaction. It get even more complicated that if you decided to go on IPO and join the stock market and adhere to all the regulation there. So the GRC system has to mature as the company matures. It will be extremely not a wise cost benefit decision if your GRC system mature before the business does, because you'll be spending money on a control function when your business is not making money in the first place. So you have to be a little bit wise when you do that.
I remember a buddy of mine was a CPA, and it was my first year. I just started this martial arts school, and I started at the beginning of the year or whatever, the Christmas before. No, maybe it was like October the year before, and April's coming. I was really worried about my taxes, and he was like, Daryl, just make money. Don't worry about your taxes next year. Daryl, you're 3-5 months in. Just worry about making money right now. Like, just don't, because I was like, what about this and that? And what about this tax loophole? Daryl, I was just a kid, but he's Daryl, just make money right now. That's what you got to worry about. But it sounds like the lift of it, and it's super important. Like you said, you already mentioned a bunch of different companies where this has been almost a linchpin. Failure to do this properly has been a linchpin. It was a big shocker to me. I know I helped the client add $1 million to her bottom line. She was at like 1 million something, and we got her to 2.6. And her accounting systems and structure, and even you talk about jurisdictions, doing sales online from multiple countries, her accounting system for around $1 million worked fine then. It completely failed her when she was over a couple of million, and she almost got taken out by the IRS just because her cash flow got hit so hard. And that was my big aha in the beginning, that marketing sales and a good product alone don't guarantee business success. There's other things to get involved. So here, what I wrote down is, depending on how many jurisdictions you're operating in, that's a real consideration there, because there's all sorts of privacy and legal, how many
Correct.
partners are involved, any regulations that you have to deal with. And then you mentioned, I wrote down board as separate than partners, because I think that there's, I think there's a differentiation between there. So those are maybe the what I got, 4 things. It looks like people have to decide. If it's relatively flat and simple, then your GRC system can be relatively straightforward. But as these become more complex, it's something perhaps they need to pay attention to and invest in proactively before they end up with a massive headache, a massive problem, massive lawsuits, massive. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
It is, it's extremely fair, and it bring me to a good point why I like it in the first place, because I always say to people, every company has its own story. And I get, believe me, Daryl, I get a lot of calls from people who just want a shortcut. It's like calling me, hey, do you have any policies and procedures I can use for this and that? And can you help me with the governance structure? We have this company, and just send me the document you have so I can apply it here. And I was like, I can, but it doesn't work this way because your company has a different structure, has a different story from the other companies. So I need to understand a couple of things first. Okay, how many owners do you have? Who's your shareholders? How much do they own? Are they passive or active? What are they looking for? Are they looking to have extremely independent, experienced board members, or people who just push the operation? Where are you at the growth stage of your company? How many products do you have? How many jurisdictions do you have? Do you have an IT platform or not? Do you sell online or not? There's a lot of questions that it needs to be answered in order to tailor a proper GRC system and GRC program for you. It's just not one thing, one document we move from one company to another company to be applied. And I think that's the beauty of it, because it introduces you to a lot of strategy different from each other. For example, with the booming of the fintech right now, a lot of people think, okay, it's the same, fintech here and fintech there. No, it's not. Because every time you sit with one of these, they have a different system. Their online transaction is different. The value proposition they want to provide to their customer is different. They configure the system differently. That means your control here is different than theirs. Right. So that's one of the beauty of it, is you see a lot, you're getting a lot of exposure to what's going on, and you learn a lot, and you help them also manage through it.
Can you give a couple of examples of different control methods, like just as a high level, just so people understand, like what's one versus another look like for controlling? Are we talking? Yeah,
definitely. I can give you a couple of examples, totally different. One is more operational, functional. One more into the control and governance. I tell you one example that I have right now we're dealing with is we have this company is formed by 4 partners, but the largest shareholder, he owns 60% of the company. He wants to be a passive investor. He doesn't want to interfere with the operation whatsoever. He owns 60%, but he doesn't want to be interfering. Say, okay, so when I met him and said, okay, what's the level of interference you want? Do you want to be on the board? Because usually 60% that will make you chairman of the board at one point, but do you want the chairman of the board to be independent? Do you want to at least vote your own? Do you want to select people who represent you? There's a lot of decisions you have to consider in order for the other partners. He comes and say, no, I trust the other partners. It's fine, you trust the other partners, but there is a day-to-day decision they have to know. For example, if these partners decided to take all your capital right now and invest in one project, are you okay with that? Or they want to take all your money and invest in 5-6 projects. How much you want to allow them to invest before they come back to you? This is a simple control. He did not even think about it. He was like, no, I trust this partner. I'll give my money. I'll be a passive. I have other things I want to pursue in my life, and I want to do it. It's like, fine, but it doesn't work that way, because you blink an eye. They had it. They invest the money with well intention. They invest the money one by project. That's it. Company is gone.
Yeah.
So how far you want to know about this project? This is one simple example. Yeah. I will give you another operational example where control makes a lot of difference. 2 companies serve in the same industry, almost similar business plan, except one difference. One of them decided to sell their product online. The other one decided not to sell their product online. This made a huge difference. And the cost structure has changed. The financial statement has changed. Why? Because now the system that decided to use the online system to sell has to abide by totally different government regulations, and they have to abide and adhere to all the cybersecurity regulation and the central bank regulation when it comes to financial transaction online. That added a huge chunk of cost on their business model they did not see before. Because everybody thought because they are selling online, they will be making more money because they don't have to go inventory and they are online and they will save in employment and all of that. This is what they thought. But when we showed them what's the control that required by the government in order to get that and how much investment they have to make, they had to reconsider their business model. When the other guy said, I'm not selling online, I'm going to go brick and mortar. I'm just going to be as simple as that and lean as it can possible. It happened. A lot of people from a theory would think the online business will just go, boom, make money because everybody's selling online. But when you add the cybersecurity aspect to it, the data privacy aspect to it, people will enter their credit card and all of that. You have to add a different governance and control into your system that will cost you a little bit of a chunk of money that should make you adjust your business plan accordingly.
Right. There's huge ramifications. Actually a close friend of mine, he's got about 100,000 customers on his email list. And one of his staff clicked a phishing email, and you're talking about cybersecurity, and this hacker got access to all the accounts. The hacker uploaded a fake 100,000 buyers to his list, emailed 30,000 of theirs, and then also called up customers pretending to be them and got access to things like private group chats on the different apps that they would use for some of their coaching programs, and started trying to then fish through all these people. This is, again, something where if you're a small operator, you may not have that concern, but just as an example of you don't even necessarily know what your risk is as you start getting to different levels. This is 100,000 buyers built over years, but he probably still has an active 7,000, 8,000 customers like today. And it's just, again, and this is just because they didn't have password protection tool, and this isn't a cybersecurity call, but one staff clicked the wrong link in an email and gave his computer control to some hacker with malicious intent. And so the liability now is because there's an echo to that. They've patched up all their stuff, right? They stopped the emails from being sent out. They hunted down who in the group's account had been compromised, that sort of thing. But these hackers stole that data, and they're probably just working that like a sales team would work leads list. Do you know what I mean? These guys are just churning. So it's almost like they say construction. Their tail can be really long. So in construction, you can have a 10-year tail. You build a house and 9 years later it collapses and kills people. Well, you built it. So how long is your tail? So I think there's a lot that goes to this. I think it's a great point. And I also love that you talked about what growth stage, because it's an art, not a science. And something a lot of people, while all this is being considered, at the end of the day, they say about people that all the people who have claimed to achieve enlightenment always came back saying, hey, I'm enlightened now, but I still have to carry wood and chop water. Chop wood and carry water. It doesn't matter how enlightened you think you are, you still have to carry wood and carry water and chop wood. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. So with growth stage, you still need to keep people coming through the door. You still have to bring in new customers. You still have to expand your markets. I think Blockbuster and Netflix is my favorite example. I use it all the time, where Blockbuster was a multi-billion-dollar company, right? The couple of B's attached to their financials every year. They had the opportunity to buy Netflix and they denied it. They could have developed any technology. They could have hired any talent, and they took their eye off the ball. And all of a sudden, this little startup out of, I think it was the UK, just comes in and decimates them and runs them bankrupt. So these things are important considerations, but at the end of the day, you have to chop wood and carry water. You have to keep growing your company. You have to keep serving the clients. So while you go through all these things, and like this guy wants to be a passive investor, like you have to make sure you can never really take your finger off the finances and the marketing. You can delegate a lot of things in a company, but in my experience and the people I've talked to, those are the two hardest things to unwrap yourself from, just because, especially if you have financial involvement, especially if you've paid for things, you have assets and whatever, just capital tied up in something, even liability. You just have liability. You're liable, right? Like you're legally liable for what this company does. You have to be careful how they market. Anyways.
You used a very excellent example. You used a very excellent example using the Blockbuster and Netflix example. And I like that example because I can highlight in my simple view of the world, I can tell you one of the problem when I read the business case right away that some of it could have been prevented. Blockbuster could survive today if they had the proper governance in place. For example, what happened, Blockbuster was winning the game against Netflix.
Right.
When they changed their model and went online and they had their own streaming services and all of that, they were winning the game against Netflix at one point and had Netflix in a corner at sight. What happened is now you have this major investor sitting on your board, making the call, overriding the CEO, having the board culture got toxic. Then you have this president who's fighting with the CEO, who has all this conflict with the CEO, who ended up ousting the CEO. And that CEO who's led the company so far and had Netflix at sight to kill for the kill. But again, the absence of proper governance to keep even large investor at check. If you are a large investor, I understand you have the largest stakes, but that doesn't make you the experts in all market. That doesn't make you an expert in this market. That doesn't make that you have to make decisions that override and overpower and hurt the minor and small investors. The problem with the Blockbuster, the small investor and the other investor did not have powerful voice to check in large investor. The president ended up making the decision. He ended up ousting the CEO. He ended up bringing another CEO. The CEO kind of override all the decisions that the previous CEO had made and brought Blockbuster down to its knees.
Yeah. So what are some of the specific skills or behaviors that you think are important for business leaders to improve or develop?
Look, if you ask a lot of people right now, there is this modern, or there is this now the in fashion word is emotional intelligence. A lot of people is talking about emotional intelligence this and emotional intelligence that, and it touches a lot of aspects of your life. It's not only a lot of people that want to frame it and mold it in a business discussion or a leadership discussion. The way I like it, it's actually touches everything in your life. Since you wake up until you sleep, with your home, with your wife, with your kids, with your family, your parents, or whatever. You need to have that emotional intelligence because it enables a proper communication. And that's my second point. If you get your hands down in the emotional intelligence and understood it, trained and develop yourself accordingly and train yourself on it properly, it enables a proper communication. It will enable me to understand how I communicate with you differently from how I communicate from other interviewer in a different. I think we had this discussion before the show. I told you about the conference that I had and all of that, and how that discussion totally went different, even though we fought it before. But that kind of emotional intelligence enable you to properly communicate, properly understand, properly empathize, to properly relate, properly stop talking when you need to stop talking. A lot of people would look at that as, what do you mean? You mean I don't have to voice my concern? I don't have the right to speak my opinion? No. Emotional intelligence actually will enable you to speak your opinion at the right tone at the right time. That's the whole point. So you look at, you sit on a board, you have people with different egos, different personality, different investment, different connection, different relationship. And if you want to get your message across and you want to add value, you have to understand your audience and you have to relate. And this is where it becomes very important, that think, observe, then speak. If you have even something to speak. For me, those are extremely important talent. I notice in today's corporate life, a lot of the millennial who coming in, a lot of the young people who's coming in into the job place, they are hard worker, passionate, extremely opinionated. But that get them in a lot of time in a hot water with the older generation, not because they don't want them to speak their opinion, but speak your opinion at the right manner, at the right time, at the right tone. And this is make the corporate transaction everyday life. And it happens. I'm sure my generation, when it came along, had issues a little bit with the older generation because with the boomer and all, because it was different.
Yep.
So adaptation is extremely important. So emotional intelligence enable better communication. Adaptation is very extremely important. Keeping an open mind, be resilient.
Yeah.
And I like to add the resilient at the end, because a lot of people would get misled by my comments, because they think I'm trying to tell them oppress your opinion. Don't say it. Respect. I was like, no, be resilient. Get your point across, but be smart about it.
Yeah, it's not what you say, it's what other people hear. And so if the delivery is off, they don't hear anything. They just feel attacked. Everything that you said lines up very well. I probably told you this, that in 2020, I hired a team of 10 assistants to help me go through all the academic literature on business success. Like I mentioned, I had a client who helped her make $1 million. And how do you almost get pushed out of business? It's so baffling to me. So that was much earlier, but it helped me realize that I didn't know everything there, and I still don't know everything about business for sure. But what they say, success leaves clues. What are the clues that are found in academia, all the published papers? And we found 8 critical success factors. And like you, people always ask for the shortcut. People always ask me, Daryl, what's the one factor that rules them all? And if I have to give an answer, it's self-efficacy, which is your ability to be effective via yourself and others. And that has 3 pillars, and you just basically spelled them out. There's a couple of extras that I would add, but one was personality traits you have to demonstrate. The second pillar is leadership skills. And I have a thing against, everyone's like leadership training, but it's never really defined. It's not quantifiable. We quantified it better. So personality traits, leadership skills, and personal disciplines. So the personality traits are locus of control. You have to be a control freak about the things that are within your control. You have to be extrovert. You have to have extroversion characteristics. You need to be open to new experiences. You have to be agreeable, conscientious, and you have to be open and accepting of criticism and feedback. This is looking at traits of the most successful companies over the longest periods of time, right? The leadership skills. What is leadership? It's self-awareness skills, communication, cooperation skills, emotional intelligence, and adaptability. That's how we defined it. And that's everything that you were talking about, because you have to work between generations. You have to work between genders. You have to work between cultures. So you need to have the communication, cooperation skills, and you have to have the emotional intelligence to understand that it's not even yourself. Sometimes it's other people. And okay, maybe they're the ones that are the problem. Maybe they're at fault, but it still upsets the project. It still causes hiccups. You know what I mean? And if you're trying to win the game, trying to win a championship, you have to do your teammates a favor by being able to support them in ways that they're weak. And that's a way emotional intelligence can support you, even if you think you're flawless. Self-awareness skills, your strengths and weaknesses are. And as you mentioned, adaptability, resilience. And then of course, the disciplines really help. Personal health, like physical, mental health, time management, a will to achieve, discipline, a sense of urgency. These are some of the vital skills that some people call soft skills that are mission critical in a lot of instances, where some people give up the whole, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I agree with you on that 100%. Now, how about some of the habits? You've been in the industry for a while. Are there any habits, whether they're daily or weekly or annually, any habits that you feel have helped you and that you feel the more successful people that you work with have?
I can tell you actually, I limited to a couple of the points you just mentioned earlier, because it's very important to me to highlight. You mentioned the extrovert and introvert and the personal awareness. And I'm going to go into now the habits as well, because they are interconnected. A lot of people would come and ask me, I was like, okay, is it because I'm introverted I cannot be a leader? Right. I was like, no, you can be a leader if you're introverted. You just have to have the personal awareness that you are introverted in the first place. Yes. Don't come and tell me you are not introverted while you are introverted, and tell me, and we get into the whole denial phase. So you have to have that personal awareness first to understand, in order for you to develop the right skills that match your personality in order to move forward in your career. So personal awareness is extremely important. And because I want to touch in the personal awareness, now I get into the habit. This is where I realized going through my career, I cannot work in chaos. What I mean by that is I cannot just wake up in the morning, look at the watch at the clock, and I have no idea what I'm about to do. I need to know exactly what I'm about to do, because I tried them both. I tried the whole relaxed approach. It's like I wake up, I take my time, life is good, I do this and I do that, then I move, then I get to work, but I have no idea what's in my agenda, but it's fine. My peace of mind is very important. I did that approach because I wanted to try it, because everybody was talking about it, that it's the right way to relax you, stress-free. At that time, everybody was talking about the mental health of leadership and corporate personnel, and how it's very important, and you have to be stress-free and relaxed. So I tried it. It didn't work. It didn't work for me at all. I just recognized, and this is where personal awareness can play a part. I had to push the button, because you're not that person. You are a person who, before I sleep at night, I would like to know at least how is my 60-70% of my next day is gonna be. I cannot know, of course, the 100%, but at least I want to know how the 60% of it is gonna be. I'm gonna wake up at this time. I'm gonna do my gym. I'm gonna do my breakfast. I go to work. I have a specific window for all of them. I need to understand the routine of my day in order to follow them. I cannot just, when I wake, a lot of people say, when I wake, I go to the gym. It's okay, what time are you gonna wake? How long are you gonna spend in the gym? Just, I need to understand, I need to go into a little bit further details. I realized my life get easier, my productivity got better, my output get better also when I get into the habit of understanding the routine of my day and match it with my personality. So what I'm trying to say, you go into Instagram, go a lot of social media, you see a lot of people who say, like, I wake up at this time, I take a cold shower and all of that, and they do that. That doesn't necessarily work for you. You just have to understand what works for you first.
Yeah.
Then do it. Don't just go and jump on and do other people's routine when it doesn't work for you. Figure out my yeah.
100%. You might have to try a couple different people's routines to figure out which one works for you. But I think the message at the end of the day is structure and discipline. It's just, I think, I don't know if it was Stephen King or someone, but there was a famous writer that said, if I depended on inspiration to write, I would have never written a single book. And the way that they won and became famous was that they had 3 hours blocked out every day. And that was it. It didn't matter what day of the week, didn't matter if it was Christmas, New Year's, the birthday. That was the 3-hour block for the day where they sat down and they just muscled their brain to do as much writing, good, bad, just for fun as possible, just because you gotta squeeze it out. It's just to escape the gravity. It's called escape velocity. For a rocket ship to escape the gravity, the pull of the earth, it has to give a certain amount of energy. And to accomplish things, as much as we're like, AI is going to automate everything, like at the end of the day, you have to walk your butt to the toilet. Like the toilet's not going to come to you. At the end of the day, you have to go and get it. God helps those who help themselves to a certain extent. And so the discipline is really there. This is your interview, but I really want to read, because you brought it up. This is one of my favorite poems. I have a list of things that I read as part of my daily morning routine. And this is one of them. I haven't read it today. So can I read this? It's 20 seconds.
Sure, please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Time is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It is unstealable, and no one receives either more or less than you receive. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day. And there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. It is impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. I have said the affair was a miracle. Is it not? You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it, you have to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friends, depends on that. If one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours a day shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. By Arnold Bennett. how to live on 24 hours a day. I love that. And to me, that
I
means,
love it.
yeah, that's it. I
I
know it's,
love
but yeah.
it's reminding me. I come to my realization, and I'll tell you what, who was my inspiration to my realization. It was actually Eleanor Roosevelt. Because when I read her book, I realized I've been doing a lot of things wrong. I'm the kind of guy, again, I told you I'm a middle child. So I grew up demanding my freedom, for example. I demand my freedom, I demand my time, I demand to do things. And actually, her book taught me that actually freedom without discipline is a freedom not worth having.
Yeah.
Discipline has to come before freedom. In order for you to get the best out of your freedom, you have to have the discipline first to have to use your freedom. And that kind of opened my eyes in a lot of possibility. It's very interesting because one of the things she mentioned also as well, when she talked about self-discipline, she said, you begin to understand the limits of freedom. You grasp the fact that freedom is never absolute, that it must always be contained. And I love that. So this is how you bring self-discipline and time and freedom all together in one space. And I love it. I love it too.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that there. I like it.
It's like it's counterintuitive. The more discipline you have with things, the more freedom you have. The less discipline you have, the less freedom you have. So if you're really disciplined with your money, then you have more freedom to do what you want with your money because you've been more disciplined. You haven't wasted it. You probably invested it wisely. So you may have more to do, right? Type thing. I had extra, I was getting laughed at today. Our helper was helping clean up and they found all these cookies in my office. And my wife and my daughter and her were like laughing at me. They found all these cookies. I was like, hey, I have 6-pack abs. I can eat the cookies. Like I did a 72-hour fast just for the heck of it 2-3 weeks ago. If I want to binge out on cookies for a day, for a week or two, I can do it because I have the discipline.
Right.
But it's anyways. So I agree. It's a weird counterintuitive thing. Now, if I always ate cookies, if I was all day, every day, then I wouldn't have that discipline or I wouldn't have that freedom because I didn't have the discipline. But if I had all discipline and no fun, would it be worth it? It's a weird, yeah, it's an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah.
Amro, you've been giving in this interview tons of great info. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you about so far?
No, actually, you covered it all, Daryl. Thank you very much. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I think one of the idea I want to throw in before we leave, it's something it's not discussed a lot, especially in corporate life or among leaders, especially with the barrage of information we have these days, either through social media or website about how you manage your day, how you control your day, and how you become more efficient, is the fact that you have to understand your rhythm. Your day has a rhythm. And I love that because I get that through one of my executive coaches helped me through to understand. And this is the first time I heard it when he said, Amro, you need to understand your rhythm. Everybody has, this is why you cannot copy somebody else's life and somebody else cannot copy your style or you cannot copy your routine because everybody has its own rhythm. So you have to understand your rhythm. Your day has a rhythm. So your rhythm may not match your day. Your day is chaos and a lot of meeting, a lot of people walking in and walk out, and your rhythm is not like that. You like things discipline. You like people to schedule their meeting first, but your job environment is not like that. So you have to understand your rhythm first and understand your day rhythm and make sure they merge together. And when you do that, you will be able to perform better, understand and relax better. And that actually helped me a lot because I used to suffer from a lot of people just walking into my office, asking questions and moving out and asking and all of that. So I had to change my style a little bit. I have to communicate with them as much as I appreciate, as much as I have an open door policy. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that we need to set up specific blocks for these walk-ins. It's not just an open door policy that means you can walk in at 8 and 7 and 7, 9 and all of that. Yep. So that helped me understand the rhythm. So I can start paying attention how my days work and how it goes. So I understand the rhythm of the day. I came home and analyzed it. I was like, do I like that or not? Does it match my personality? Does it match my style? Then I start enforcing my style into it. So you start controlling the rhythm of your day and matching it with your rhythm, with the personality. I love that. That's one of the exercises that benefited me the most. And I wanted to leave you with it before we conclude.
Yeah, I think boundaries are super, super important, and understanding the rhythms of our day. Amro, if people want to continue this conversation, if they want to reach out, if they want to get in touch, if they want to follow or connect, what's the best way for them to do that?
Look, my profile on LinkedIn is public. A lot of people reach me out there. They can send me text, they can drop me a message, they can post in my wall, they can do whatever. It's connected to my email. Whatever they send me comes directly to my email. If they want to take later the discussion later into WhatsApp or phone call or a meeting, I'll be happy. I'm doing a lot of that on the side, and I'm extremely happy and grateful that I can offer some insight into and help somebody else as well to grow and learn from my experience.
I love it. I love it. So people that want to learn more, go follow him on LinkedIn, AMROSHAWLI. We got the right guy. If it says CIA, CMA, and CERT Director, DIR on him, and he's in Saudi Arabia. Amro, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a pleasure. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Sending love to your family, your followers. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge with us, knowing you have your own direct reports, you have your own following, your own family that you could be spending this time with. Thank you for coming and helping all of us do a little bit better.
Thank you, Daryl. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for this opportunity.